Okay, hi everyone. Yes, I am Sarah Wiseman. I am the program leader for the games programming course here at Goldsmiths. Some of you know that because I teach you. Well done for being here. You all get extra credit. I am one of those big faces that Alan put up earlier. I wanted to talk to you today about board games because I love board games, and I think at Global Game Jams, it's important that we think about board games and we talk about board games. And so I wanted to introduce you to some of the research that's been going on here at Goldsmiths, some of the research that I've been doing. But in true academic supervisor style, when I talk about this research, I want you to realize that if I ever say we, I mean my student. Every time I claim that we did some work or we found some findings, my student did the work and my student found the findings. So I just want to make sure that there is enough credit given to the students that made this work. So I'm talking to you about board games. I'm talking to you about how we can incorporate technology into board games and whether or not there is possibility there for that or whether or not it's just kind of more of a novelty. So if we look back, technology in board games is not a new thing. Who has played this game? The question I just asked there is, who is 30 or above? This game is Dream Phone. It came out in the 90s. The aim of the game is that you have to find out who has a crush on you, and to do so, yeah, it's hard-hitting stuff. To do so, you have to call up various friends, various boys, and they will tell you about they will give you clues about who it is that has a crush on you, and you have to, by process of elimination, work out who it is. It's kind of like Cluedo, but with more hormones and worse fashion choices. So this is, technology in games is not a new thing. I don't know, is anyone following Kickstarter? Has anyone followed this game? It's Return to Dark Tower. Anyone seen that? It's a game from the past that has been renewed and reinvigorated, and the team working on it have released it on Kickstarter, and they've got over $3 million of backing in it. It ends in a few days, I think, actually. But this game, which is a board game but has this technologically enabled tower in the middle that deals with dice rolling and giving out skulls, and there are lights, and there's a whole host of things. It shows that there is some vigor, some excitement in the board game community for us to incorporate technology. But it doesn't always work. So this game here, this is called Tiburo. Has anyone seen Tiburo? A few people, yeah. Okay, so this is the idea of this, is that it's a digitally enabled board game platform, basically. Whilst it's not a game in itself, it is a kind of game mat and technology system that allows you to put out a board game, and then this system will sense things from the board game pieces that are on the mat, that are on the game board, and it will make things like sound effects occur and graphics change and things like that. They're very proud of the technology they have here. You can see that along with core electronics, they also have a USB port. Woohoo, I know, everyone's amazed. I can buy something with a USB port. That's incredible. And their dice, again, has electronics and also a battery in it. I've just noticed, look, someone can't really do the graphic design on that. That's a wonky 3 there. I wonder if... Anyway, sorry, I'm insulting this. But what I'm doing is I'm highlighting that this hasn't actually been met with great reception from the board game community. Someone said, turning your $60 drink spill into a $600 drink spill. This is quite an expensive game. If you drop some drink on this, you are going to lose a lot of money. Someone else, I really don't want to have to change the batteries in my dice. And someone kind of encapsulates some of the sentiment towards this, which is, can't the app just generate a random number by itself? Why is there a computer chip dice? It makes the whole project look overinflated with unnecessary bells and whistles. And this is one of the key complaints that people have when they see technology added to an otherwise analog board game. Why? Has the technology just been added for no reason? It's just been kind of dropped on top? What's the purpose of adding technology? Thanks for asking, everyone. Well, this is some of the work that one of my PhD students has been working on, Timea Farkas. And she is trying to work out what can technology do that's beneficial to games. She's trying to ask the question, how can technology be used to enhance a game? And the thing that she's specifically looking at is the idea of immersion. So immersion is this word that is thrown around a lot in games culture. A lot of video games are said to be immersive. We like VR because it's very immersive. And some of the board game companies are talking about immersion now. But it really raises the question, what on earth does immersion look like in the sense of board games? What are we talking about when we talk about immersion? So this is some of the initial work that my student has done. She's kind of looked at these, some of the forum posts and some of the data that board games are already producing, and has found two different definitions of immersion within board games. So the first is encapsulated by a quote like this: "Playing the game makes you feel specific emotions that are why did I put a quote in there that has that word in? That are a simulacrum of the emotions you would feel if you were in the game's universe." People that feel immersion like this are talking about submergence. They're talking about losing themselves in the universe, in the narrative, in the story that the board game produces. Other people don't really see that. Other people don't play board games in that way. Some people think about it more in this way. I think that the most important key would be an experience that you get lost in, where almost all of your focus is on the experience. You lose track of time. These people, when they think about board game immersion, they think about engrossment. They think about just losing time, about looking down and looking up and the sun has set and their tea has gone cold, anything that means that they lose sense of time. So when we think about and talk about immersion in board games, it's important to realize that there are lots of different things going on when we mention that word. So once we've kind of understood the kind of space in which immersion can occur, what can we do to help and hinder immersion? So I want to highlight a few of the things that we found from our research. So what can hinder immersion? The answer is you. You hinder immersion. Whenever you've played with people, it's likely that you have a different understanding about what's important about the game. And sometimes you might do things that take other players out of the game. I played this with the wrong group, who were just ignoring all of the flavor text and powering through. It was a terrible experience. It felt like it was a really cool game under here. So this player really annoyed that all of that lovely flavor text that gave experiences and stories and narrative was being completely ignored. This next quote is my favorite one. "I have a friend that does this in everything." Example from Alchemists. "Okay, so I do a red plus and sell it in the thingy." No! You concoct a healing potion and sell it to the barbarian on the market. This person, very annoyed that other players aren't inhabiting that game universe, are just talking about the board game in terms of mechanics and pieces and aren't thinking about what the underlying story is. And that can ruin immersion for some people. Other people get their immersion ruined in very straightforward ways. No game will ever be able to fully occupy my attention if another player is talking on a phone call whilst another is checking out another game at another table, and yet another is already talking about what to play next. So I highlight this to say that players are one of the main things that can break immersion for board game players. Other things that can hinder hinder immersion. Things that have lack of real consequence. If you feel like if the board game makers have decided to put this story on top of the mechanics, if they haven't done it well enough, it can really lose the players. And unless one of the few interesting crossroad cards comes up, I've never been able to get attachment to a character so that their death is anything more than one fewer action die. If the death of a character doesn't leave you feeling anything emotionally and all you're thinking about is mechanics, then you really haven't successfully got immersed in the board game. Let's look at things that can help immersion. A lot of the things that help immersion are people bringing extra experiences to the board game. So these people talk about the game Merchants and Marauders being very immersive. It's fabulously immersive. We've even dressed as seafarers or pirates to play, with a bit of spiced rum on the side and sea shanties playing in the background. The word shanties sounded weird there. Is it shanties? Oh my goodness, how posh do I sound? Anyway, these people have worked out a way to make this game really immersive by bringing their own experiences. But this leads on to something that I want to highlight, which is a really key, easy way to engage and increase immersion. This idea of sea shanties. The idea of bringing your own music to a board game is not something that's new. In our research, we found loads and loads and loads and loads of people talking about bringing soundtracks to their board game experience and helping them get immersed in that board game experience. If you want to go away and make your board game experience more immersive, because you think music might help, I can recommend the website Mellow Dice. You type in the board game you're playing and they will produce a YouTube playlist of music that you can listen to whilst you're playing your board games. It is really very, very immersive. If you do it and you find it's not, then let me know and we will add it to our research. So what novel ways can we make tech if we want to try and improve a board game, if we want to give game makers advice on how to improve their technology? What can we do? Well, we don't need tech to add randomness to a game. We have dice, we have card shuffles. We don't need tech to look after our components. That's quite a common thing that technology apps try to do for board games. They allow you to look after all your components in your app. No, you're fundamentally misunderstanding why I play a board game. I play a board game so I can touch all of these components, so I can play with the physical things. One thing we can do with tech that analog board games can't do is we can share dynamic and adaptive information to the players. And this is one thing that another student, Kevin Lewis, who is somewhere at the back, worked on for his undergraduate project. We were looking at how we could augment a social deception game. I don't really have time to explain a social deception game, but it's things like Mafia or Werewolf. Who here has played those games? Or The Resistance? This is a very stacked audience. Well done, everyone. Okay. If you don't know what a social deduction game is, it's a game where you have to withhold information from your friends and at the end you distrust them for life. That's basically the description of a social deduction game. But because there's all this secret information going on in the background, you don't know who to trust. We wanted to explore what would happen if you gave some players a bit of information that they could rely upon. So we added technology and we gave players some information about the person that they were interacting with. It might tell you how often this person has betrayed someone before, or how many times they've done something trustworthy. And we wanted to see if this would affect the way that people played the game. What are the answers? Well, it turns out that people don't necessarily trust or use technology, even when it's there to help them. People trusted themselves over technology. They thought, no, the technology might be saying this, but the person across from me, we've been out drinking for 10 years together. We are best buddies. There's no way they'll betray me. Or they might have thought to themselves, no, I don't care what the technology say. I can just read a person. I know this. I know this social cue. I know I'm not going to get deceived. Or people were just making pacts and deals, and they trusted those pacts and deals. You should never trust people. If you take nothing away from this talk apart from that, I'm joking, that's not my final say. But it raised an interesting question. Even though we were giving people this information, they chose not to use it. So it's really interesting to see how we can play with this idea. What things can we do to change how people trust technology and how people choose to trust people? So, kind of concluding, I just want to highlight that there are opportunities for technology to be used in board games. But the points are, it needs to be used properly. There are things that technology can do really well that analog games can't. It can provide you with dynamic or real-world information, like the game Detective, if you've played that. It can provide you with communication possibilities between players. It can also sense fun things and quantify them. If you've played the game Beasts of Balance, no, is that what it's called now? Fabulous, I can't remember which one it is. That is a board game that can sense really interesting things, and it can only do so using technology. The key here is you need to not just drop it on top, you need to bake it in. So, that was my speed review of board games and technology. My takeaways are, for this game jam, make board games. I don't want to be subtle about this. Make board games. Technology is a fun frontier to explore. No one knows what they're doing with regards to technology in board games at the moment. So if you're kind of intrigued, then go for it. There are no right or wrong answers right now. And I think this really echoes what Alan was saying earlier. Get it right, get it wrong. It's all interesting. It doesn't matter. Success doesn't mean what you ordinarily think success means. So that's me, done. Again, I would like to thank my two students, Timea Farkas and Kevin Lewis, who did all of the work. Cool, thank you everyone.